Well, I have to start out by letting you guys know that Bobby wanted to say good morning from the Grand Canyon this morning. He's up there hiking with some guys, and he's thinking about each and every one of you as he does every day and every week. And so I'd like to start with that. And so if you guys don't mind, maybe we could start by just praying for him and the group that he's with, that they're safe, that they're enjoying themselves, and that they're kind of soaking in everything that the Grand Canyon has to offer when you're down inside of it. You guys good with that? All right, let's go ahead and just say a quick prayer for those guys. Lord, we just thank you for bringing us together, but we also thank you for Bobby, who leads us on a regular basis. Thank you for the time that he's getting to spend with some other men in one of your great creations of beauty. Please help them to enjoy every moment. Please keep them safe, and please bring them all back to their family and loved ones in even more energized, refreshed, re-energized way. Lord, we thank you for all that you do in our lives, the way that you prep us and prepare us. Thank you for your son, Jesus, that we can lean on and rely on always. Amen. So it's early on a Saturday morning, but are you guys ready to train? Are you freaking kidding me? That's what you say when you're ready to, are you guys ready to train or what? I know Chuck knows how to train. He's in the gym every morning. But we do have to be ready. We have to stand ready. And what we're going to be looking at this morning is the fact that we are all called to lead, and we have to stand ready for that. And so I'd like to begin by congratulating each and every one of you, because you guys show up, and we show up every Saturday. You show up open. You show up ready. You show up vulnerable. You show up sharing that we need to think about our thoughts. You show up prepared. You show up moving time outside your family to be here. And that's to be congratulated, because you guys make it happen. And then you take it back into your lives after we're finished training on a Saturday morning. And so I also thank you for everything that you pour into each of our lives, everything that you've poured into my life over the last few years that I've been here. I thank you for what you pour into each other's lives. And that's what we're going to have the opportunity to do here this morning, is continue to pour into each other. And so I thank you for that. And I congratulate you for showing up and for being here every single week. So I'll ask you again, are we ready to train this morning? Yeah. All right, there. That sounds like a group of guys that are ready to train. And by the way, let's give some appreciation to the guys that are on Zoom. They still show up every week. Sometimes they can't be here. Many of them haven't been able to be here at all. Some of them are out of state. So let's just give some appreciation to the guys that are on Zoom that show up all the time too. So let me ask you guys a question. One of the things that you'll find out is this is going to be a bit interactive, okay? I don't just stand up here and teach. I got to make sure that you guys are engaged and ready to go. So let's just start with this opening question. You can just random fire this. You guys in the chat, just throw your responses in the chat, okay? But here's our opening question. Let's think about this. I want you to think about, who are some of the best leaders that you've ever known or that you've had a chance to meet? Just get them in your heads. Who are some of the best leaders that you've ever had around you? You starting to picture some of them? Think of their names. Let me ask you this. What are some of the words you would use to describe those leaders? Just throw them out. Loyal, thank you. What was that? Integrity, thank you. Visibility, what's that? Humility, yes. Fearless, yes. What else? Vision, thank you. Patient, thank you. Lead by example, thank you. There was another one over there. Intentional, thank you. Yeah. They listen, don't they? Yeah, thank you. They care. Absolutely, they care. So let me ask you this. Think about all those words that we just shared about some of the greatest leaders we know. Is it not true that you carry some of those very same characteristics within you? Isn't it true that you have those characteristics in you? Gentlemen, we are called to lead. We are called to lead. And you don't always know when that moment of opportunity is going to show up, do we? When that moment to lead is going to show up. And so we got to be ready, right? And to be ready means that we get prepared for that opportunity, not knowing when it might come. We're going to get an opportunity to kind of dive into the story of Joshua this morning, a powerful story of leadership. And that's what we're going to dive into. The cool thing is, I want us to be able to get the most value we possibly can out of the 30 minutes we have together. You guys okay with that? Literally, like, I want us to action pack it. Let's get as much as we can out of the next 30 minutes. Everybody okay with that? All right. So I'm a sports guy. I grew up playing sports. I love to coach. So I don't know about you guys, but I like to know the game plan before I go in so that I've got the highest likelihood of winning. Anybody else appreciate that? Okay. So I tell you what, let me just give you the 3 keys to success. This is what's going to allow us to get the most that we possibly can out of the next few minutes we have together. You guys can write these down. You've got a card in front of you. That's for your notes. That's for you, gentlemen. You write the stuff down that hits you. You write down the ideas that hit you. So here's our 3 keys to success. Okay. This is what's going to help all of us win this morning. The first one is what I just mentioned. Capture your thoughts. Capture your thoughts. Write them down. Let me ask you this. How many of you have ever had a brilliant idea ever in your life? How many of you had a brilliant idea? I know there's more than one. Come on now. How many of you had a brilliant idea? Okay. How many of you ever had one of these moments where 10 seconds later, you have no idea what that idea was? I mean, you know, it was a great one, right? We don't want that to happen this morning. Isaac's laughing because it's happened to him, right? We don't want that to happen. Key to success number 1 this morning, capture your thoughts. That's why you've got that blank sheet in front of you. Okay. Key to success number 2. By the way, key to success number 3 is everyone's favorite. We'll get there. All right. Key to success number 2. Let's fully invest in one another this morning. Fully invest. Bobby does a great job of giving us the time to fully invest in one another when we're here, doesn't he? He gives us table time, time to gather, time to get together every single Saturday. And over the next few minutes, that's what we want to do also. Let's fully invest in one another. There's so much happening in our lives outside this room, isn't there? There is a ton happening in every single one of your lives outside of this room. But for the next few minutes we have, let's be in this room. Let's be present. Because the reality is that's the only moment we got, right? We're not guaranteed the 30 minutes after this. We're not guaranteed the hour after this. Let's fully invest in the time we have together. Good so far? All right. Key to success number 3. You guys will like this one. I know. Key to success number 3. Let's have some fun together. All right. Let's have some fun. So key to success number 3, have fun. All right. What's key to success number 1? Capture your thoughts. Half the guys know what it is. All right. We're working on it. Key to success number 2. Fully invest. There we go. Key to success number 3. Have fun. All right. Joshua was an incredible leader. This is a story of fear. It's a story of annihilation. It's a story of deceit. But it's also a story of promise. It's a story of triumph. It's a story of victory. It's a story of wealth. And it's all through a God-intoxicated man, a God-breathed man. And that's what we're going to take a look at today, is this study of Joshua. And when we get to it, we're actually going to look at what are the 3 traits of a God-intoxicated man. Anybody else want to be a God-intoxicated man? Yeah. We're going to look at what are the 3 traits of a God-intoxicated man. But first, let's take a look at the story of Joshua. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are familiar, at least somewhat familiar with the story of Joshua? Anybody? A few. Okay, great. Actually, a lot of you. So the story of Joshua, and if you want, Jim, you can go ahead and put up that map. As we mentioned, the story of Joshua has many, many components to it. First of all, Joshua was called to lead after Moses. How many of you like to step in those shoes? Yeah. You talk about feeling the pressure to step up. Guess what, Joshua? God comes into your life and says, you know what? You're lead next. Next man up, right? And what you're looking at is what Joshua and the men that he led accomplished. And it was all through following what God told them to do. Over and over in the story of Joshua, in the beginning, you see many times where he calls Joshua, be strong and very courageous. In fact, in Joshua chapter 1, 3 verses, he repeats that. Be strong and very courageous. He's prepping Joshua mentally for what he's about to face, because there's going to be people that are going to go against him. There's going to be people that are going to question his decisions. There's going to be people that aren't sure if he's doing it for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, because they're going to have to go to war. They're going to have to kill people. They're going to have to go to battle, and it's going to be brutal, and they're going to be outnumbered. He's going to be questioned for what he does as a leader. How many of you have ever felt questioned about your decisions? Right? And yet they continue to move forward. Every time God tells him to do something, they do it. God says, Joshua does. God says, Joshua does. And ultimate is the victory of the land that was promised to the Israelites. But it took a lot of work to get there. It took a lot of effort. It took a lot of sacrifice to get there to accomplish this. Up there, what you're looking at is the fact that this wasn't easy to do back then. We got to remember, this is 1400 BC. Okay, they're not cruising around in Humvees at that time. They're trucking on their feet to cover this amount of land. And they're going into battle after battle after battle. And what we see is God's brilliance show up through Joshua in his psychological warfare. We see it show up in his tactics. We see it show up in the path that they take to achieve the victories that they do. That's what we're going to unpack this morning. That's what we're going to dig into this morning. Does that sound like anything you guys are interested in? All right. Now, here's the great thing. These very same principles that Joshua used, we can use in our lives today to have victory over the things that we battle with. Because the reality is, we all battle wars every day, don't we? I mean, Ralph and Steve mentioned this morning, Ralph talked about forgiveness, right? God, forgive us for our thoughts. God, forgive us for our heart, right? Steve helped us understand how important our thoughts are. We face battles every day, don't we? So these principles, these traits that we're going to unpack, we can absolutely use those today. They're not just for 1400 BC. So let's dive in and check it out. You guys ready? All right. So if we take a look at this, one of the things that Coach John Wooden, Hall of Fame Coach John Wooden, I know not all of you are basketball fans. I hope many of you are basketball fans, but even if you're not a basketball fan, Coach John Wooden gave us some great wisdom along the way. In fact, one of the things that he said often is, when opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare, right? When opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. We see you guys in here all the time preparing, right? We're preparing for the opportunities that come. We're preparing for the opportunities to lead. And that's why, as we unpack some of this, we want to look at what are these 3 traits. Because the reality is, as I mentioned earlier, but I'm going to say it a little bit differently now, the reality is every single one of you are totally unique, which makes you extremely valuable, right? You are totally unique. There is no one else like you. No one has the same journey you've had. No one has the same life experiences you've had. No one has exactly the same gifts that you have. You are totally unique, which makes you extremely valuable, which is why God has created each and every one of us to lead when the moments of opportunity come, when those are provided. But we have to prepare and we have to be ready. That's why we have to stand ready, is because all of us, the reality is all of us are called to lead, right? 3 traits of a God-intoxicated leader. Trait number 1. You guys ready? Fortitude. Fortitude. What does fortitude mean? Okay. I think I heard somebody say bold, right? Fortitude. It's courage with persistence. Okay. Courage with persistence. Fortitude, courage with persistence. How many of you are willing to prepare for 40 years for your opportunity to lead, as Joshua was? 40 years, an aide to Moses, along his side, standing side by side, preparing, day after day, week after week, year after year. 40 years. How many of us would have the persistence to prepare for 40 years, not knowing if your opportunity is ever going to come? Would you stick with it? My hope is you would, because that's what fortitude is. Because now with that persistence also comes courage, because we all have to make decisions every day. Let me give you a local example. How many of you have been to downtown Gilbert anytime in the last 5 years? Downtown Gilbert, right? Okay. People down there all the time. How many of you were ever in downtown Gilbert 15 years ago? How different did it look 15 years ago versus the last 5 years? Okay. You know how many times I've heard people call downtown Gilbert an overnight success? Do you realize that was like a 30-year overnight success? There were leaders in our community that worked tirelessly to prepare downtown Gilbert to one day be the vibrant downtown community that it is right now. There were decisions that were made that were not liked decisions. They were not popular decisions. And yet those decisions were made anyway to give us something, a community, a part of our community that we can enjoy. That's an example of fortitude. And each of us have the opportunity to include fortitude in our lives. In fact, I mentioned earlier how many times God said to Joshua, be strong and courageous. But he also said that to Joshua 2 times prior to his leadership that we know of in the Bible in Deuteronomy. So in Deuteronomy 31:7 and Deuteronomy 31:23 are 2 times before Joshua takes leadership, where it says, be strong and courageous. We're going to talk about strength here in a moment. But then in the first chapter of Joshua, right at the beginning of his leadership, in Joshua 1:6, 7, and 9, he says again, be strong and courageous. It's as if God knows we're going to face challenge, right? We're going to face obstacles. He's letting us know you have to be strong and courageous. You have to have persistence. You have to prepare over and over along the way and renew that preparation on a regular basis. And you have to have courage in your decisions. It took courage, and I apologize. What's your name over here? AJ. It took courage for AJ to go, you know what? I'm putting my family first today. That took courage, didn't it, AJ? Right? That wasn't necessarily the comfortable decision for him. He mentioned he likes to help people. It was a courageous decision to go, you know what? Today I'm going to spend it with my family, though. I'm going to do what I need to do for them. I congratulate you on that. That's a tough decision. That's a courageous decision. But as men, we don't always look at some of those decisions as courageous, do we? We think that there's supposed to be some, fireworks sort of moment after our decision to go, yep, that was a courageous decision. The reality is we have an opportunity to make a courageous decision every single day. Sometimes they come in the smallest decisions that we make, because every one of our decisions have a ripple effect. I remember my wife telling me a long time ago, I also love helping people. AJ, I can relate to you, man, like you wouldn't believe. I love helping people. And years ago, my wife had, by the way, one of the things I love about my wife is I don't have to guess what she's thinking. Man, she will let me know. Yeah, all of you caught on to that, didn't you? That's right. I'm thankful for that. I don't like guessing. I don't read minds real well. Years ago, she looked at me and she goes, JW, I just want you to know something. She goes, every time you say yes to someone else, you're saying no to us. You talk about feeling it, right? Well, I felt it. I'm still not all that great at it, but I feel it, because now all she's got to do is basically go, you sure that's what you want to do? I go, you know what? I'm going to rethink that for a moment, right? First trait of a God-intoxicated man, a God-intoxicated leader, fortitude. courage with persistence. Key trait number 2. You guys ready for it? All right. These 3 are big ones, by the way. Okay. Bobby told me that I was allowed to push you guys this morning. So I didn't pick 3 easy ones. We picked them right out of the book of Joshua. And boy, did he ever have to be strong and courageous. So second trait. Second trait is humility. Humility. Trait number 1 was fortitude. Trait number 2 is humility. Humility requires strength and discipline and gratitude. Humility requires strength and discipline and gratitude. How many of you have ever been in one of those moments like Joshua when maybe you didn't quite feel ready for what was about to happen, but yet you took action anyway, right? I hope all of you have had a moment like that. I hope all of you have had several moments like that. Those are moments to be humble, right? Those are moments when you're sitting there going, I have no idea what I'm about to get into, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to take a step. I'm going to do it. And that's exactly the position that Joshua was put in. Like I mentioned earlier, right? How many of you would want to step into the shoes of leading right after Moses? That'd be a tough one, right? But sometimes we have to take action even if we don't feel ready. And that's why preparation is so important. We don't know when those opportunities are going to come. Humility is having the gratitude to go, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for this moment. I don't have any clue what I'm supposed to do next, but thank you for this moment. And actually having joy in that. Now, what that also means is we have to overcome fear, don't we? Because strength, if you're going to have strength, it means you have to overcome fear to get stronger. Fear is a reality. Fear can be a resource. Fear can be a tool if we use it in the right way. But you have to overcome fear for that strength and discipline, right? Discipline is a part of humility because even as mentioned, Ralph gave us a great testimony on the fact that, look, I know where I struggle, right, Ralph? You admitted that. I know where I struggle. And here's some things that I've done in my life. Here's some actions that I take in my life. Here's some decisions I've chose to make sure that I've got the discipline to overcome those thoughts. Chosen different path, different actions. And so that's where the discipline comes in. I wrote this down from the book of Joshua. Do you realize that Moses led thousands, didn't he? Joshua was one of thousands. In fact, he actually was one of 10 that then was called to lead. And he had a great partner in Caleb, didn't he? We don't know when we'll be chosen. We actually have to have the humility to say, yes, I will do it, and I can do it, and I'm going to have the strength and discipline and gratitude to take this on. That's what Joshua set the example for us. And that's what we have the opportunity to do. I also wrote these verses down if you guys want to reference these, because I thought they were powerful when it comes to this. In Joshua 5:14, it says that then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence. What message does the Lord have for his servant? Man, how powerful would it be if we said that to ourselves every day? He fell face down in reverence, in humility, and said, what message does the Lord have for his servant? Joshua understood his position. He understood his place. And even though he was called to lead other people, he understood that he was under the direction of God. And that's what helped him lead. He had the humility to realize that. I also wrote this verse down, Joshua 24:15. In part of that verse, it goes on to say, but as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. How many of us have heard that verse, right? But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. That's an action of humility, isn't it? It's also an action of strength and discipline, because you have to have strength in order to be humble, right? Sometimes the things that we think make us strong aren't actually what make us strong, right? There's been some things that we've been conditioned to think make us strong, right? Being authoritative makes us strong. How many times in your life have you tried to be authoritative only to realize you didn't gain any respect from anybody by doing it? That wasn't strong. Being humble is strong. Being a servant is strong. These are examples for us. In some of the study that I was doing this week, by the way, I have to tell you, I was so thankful when Bobby asked, hey, would you be willing to do this? I've probably studied more in the last 2 weeks in this stuff than maybe the last 10 years combined, because I'm like, whoa, talk about a moment of humility. Bobby asked and I went, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm your guy. Over 100 verses in the Bible say something to the effect of being humble. Over 100 verses talk about being humble. You think God thinks it was important for us to understand that? Right? If it's emphasized that much over and over. Now, guess what? Those 100+ verses, that doesn't even include the number of verses where it says, fear not, or do not be afraid, or meek. What? Say that again, Bruce. Bruce nailed it. Yeah. So depending on which I guess study you're reading, there's many of them that say that it's 365 times. It says either be not afraid or fear not. Imagine that for every day of the week. We were told, fear not. Apparently, we need a lot of reminders with that one, right? It's good for us to be reminded. All right, you guys ready for trait number 3? Yeah. All right, trait number 3. So trait number 1 was what? There you go. Trait number 2 was what? There you go. This one's going to hit us. It was actually already mentioned earlier. Ralph nailed it for us. Trait number 3 of a God-intoxicated leader: forgiveness. Forgiveness. You don't have to raise your hands on this one, but how many of you, this one's hard? I mean, I'm not talking about the easy forgiveness stuff. I'm talking about the stuff that we don't want to forgive. I'm talking about the stuff that we don't want to forgive ourselves for. I'm talking about the stuff that we don't even want to bring up anymore because we're not quite sure what that's going to do in our lives. Think about this in your lives. Where is the heaviest weight on your shoulders come from? Think about this for a moment. Just ponder that for a moment. You don't have to say anything out loud. If a thought hits you, write it down on your card, man. That's why those are there. Where does the heaviest weight on your shoulders in life come from? Unresolved guilt, broken relationships, lost hope. Unresolved guilt, broken relationships, lost hope. That's where the heaviest weight comes from. There's an exercise that we do on our team on a regular basis that helps us understand what impacts our physical strength. How many of you have been conditioned to think that when you get angry is when you get stronger, right? When you get mad, that's when your physical strength gets stronger. It's not actually the case, okay? My dad was an incredible man. He was put in a position to raise 3 boys on his own at 35 years old as a journeyman carpenter. And he taught us a ton along the way. He taught us that you can achieve anything that you want to achieve, man. You just got to work for it. You got to get after it. You got to go for it. You got to believe that you can. He was optimistic. He loved life. He helped others, did an incredible job. And towards the end of his life, I saw a belief that showed up in a way that it changed all of that to where he lost hope. He felt regret. When we were young, he used to teach us, you never need to apologize for anything you've done. You don't say sorry. I know what he meant. He wanted us to be strong. He wanted us to be tough. He wanted us to handle the world, right? It's a great song, by the way. But here's the reality. I'm thankful that my brothers and I learned as young adults that that wasn't actually the case. You have to be able to forgive. You have to be able to move on. You have to be able to ask for forgiveness when you've messed up. Not being able to forgive took my dad's life. I'm going to share something with you, gentlemen, that I haven't shared publicly ever. Very few people know this, but I'm sharing it with you because I hope it has an impact to help us understand how powerful forgiveness is. There's a reason why in the Bible and from God, we are asked over and over and over to be able to forgive, to ask for forgiveness. There's a reason for it. It wasn't health issues that took my dad's life. It was a gun to the chest from his own hand. Because this one, forgiveness, was so hard for him. Don't let forgiveness be the one that gets in your way. In fact, I'm going to ask you to do something right now on these cards. These are for you. I want you to answer 2 questions. You write down the names that come to mind. Okay? Write down the names of people who you need to forgive. Who are the names of the people you need to forgive? Just write their names down. Go for it. Now, as you're writing those, I also want you to think about, write down the names of the people that you need to ask for forgiveness from. Who are the people that you need to ask for forgiveness from, and write their names down? Go for it. Let it be instinctive. Who are the first names that come to mind? Who are the first people that come to mind? Who do I need to ask for forgiveness from, and who do I need to forgive? Joshua was a conqueror. Because of Joshua's leadership, the Israelites were given the land they were promised. But the way that Joshua had to go about doing it, my imagination would tell me he probably had some enemies along the way. You think? I mean, they literally annihilated communities. They literally killed every living being and creature in Jericho. Think about that. You have to be a God-intoxicated man to do something like that. And you have to know that it came from God. But it means you probably had some enemies too. My imagination would tell me that Joshua probably struggled with some of his decisions. My imagination would tell me that Joshua probably questioned whether he was truly following God all the time, or whether he got in his own way and started doing some of the stuff that he wanted to do. My imagination would tell me that Joshua had to ask for forgiveness. I got another verse for you guys. You can write this down. Matthew 18:22. Matthew 18:22. When Jesus was asked about this topic of forgiveness, here was his response. And it basically was a question of, how often should we forgive? And Jesus responds by saying 70 times 7. 70 times 7. That's what he says in Matthew 18:22. What I learned was that number is actually a symbolism for boundlessness. That's the type of frequency we're supposed to involve forgiveness in our life. Boundlessness. Here's the reality. Joshua was a precursor for the promise that God gave every one of us. Joshua was a precursor that God was going to send his son Jesus as the ultimate promise, as the ultimate forgiveness. As then Jesus would leave us the Holy Spirit to live within us every day, through every decision, through every mistake, through every challenge, through every relationship. That's the gift we've been given when we said yes to Jesus, is the Holy Spirit now lives within you to help guide your decisions, to help give you the fortitude that you need, to help give you the humility that you need, to help give you the forgiveness that you need. We're going to do two last things to finish out. I'm going to ask Jim to play a song. And as this song is played, I want you to let the words rest inside you, and for you to write down any thoughts or words or phrases that hit you as you listen to the lyrics. Deal? Okay. Let this song flow in you for just 3 minutes. Jim, if you would, go for it. Check this out just for a moment. In the Old Testament, there's a way that they used to reference God. They would say, Yahweh. Yahweh. Let's all say that together just a moment. Say, here on the count of three. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Yahweh. Let's say it one more time, but this time, pay attention to what happens to your breath as you say Yahweh. You guys ready? Focus on your breath. 3, 2, 1. Yahweh. The Apostle Paul told all of us, so let's not allow ourselves to get fatigued in doing good. Be God-inspired men. Be God-intoxicated men. And let's be God-breathed men. And that way, when we're called to lead in any given moment, each and every one of us can already know and be confident that we're standing ready for that call. Deal? All right. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do before we break up into our groups is, if you would, just go ahead, stand and get in your groups of 4 or 5 or whatever your group is, but don't leave the room yet. Just go ahead and stand like in a huddle like we would if we were out there getting ready to play some football. Okay? So go ahead and do that, but don't leave anywhere yet. I'm going to give you one additional instruction. Okay? Just go ahead, stand in your group, get somewhere where you guys can kind of be in a huddle. There you go, gentlemen. As you finish up your prayers, go into your table time. Enjoy yourselves. Have the courage to stay focused on who you need to forgive and who you need to ask for forgiveness from. Thank you and enjoy your week.